How's it going, everyone? Moodog for Moodog's Frugal RCs and more. We are in the research kitchen again today. We'll be doing a product rundown on these Hobbypark oil-filled shock absorbers. Recently, on a video I did for my Red Cat Blackout XTE, I showed you at the end of the Urban Bash and review video how I ended up losing some hardware for one of the shock absorbers, and come to find out during inspection and cleaning of the vehicle that a little bit more than that was going on at the end of that run. You can see on here, this is the bottom of the shock where it would attach to the lower A-arm. You can see that this is actually broken, and 3 of my shocks ended up like this, broken in the bottom area here. Pretty thin amount of material on this, guys, and I think just from the cold, it was like 20 degrees that day, and it was pretty cold out, and I think that this was a bit too much for this to handle, the amount of bashing that I did that day. So in the process of looking for replacement shocks for that car, I decided on getting something a little bit more on the budget end. Now, does budget always mean the best bang for the buck? Not always. I bought these on Amazon, so they have, and Prime, so they have a pretty good return policy should these not be what I'm looking for. One of the things that it's a bit of a drawback when purchasing something like this is it's not a direct fit. So I'm going to find myself having to modify the way I install these on the vehicle. I'm probably going to have to fabricate something, or I'm going to have to do some modification somewhere else down the line to get these to work on that vehicle. Now, I noticed right away they didn't state in the description the length of these shock absorbers, but you can see through the package there on the left hand side that the replacement shock absorber is a bit shorter than the stock shock absorber. So I may end up having to remove a coil or two out of here to get this to sit right. I don't want this under any major load right away. I want it to be able to sit and actually have the preload, the weight of the vehicle actuate the amount of preload I want. I don't want this sprung under load right away. So that being said, I mean, there may be some modification that I need to do to use these, but let's go ahead and get this package open here and take a look and see what we have inside. Let's go ahead and get these open and see what comes inside the package here and go from there. So it does come in a Ziploc bag like most of the products that you're getting from China do. Let's go ahead and get this open and take a look at the shocks inside here. And we'll pull one out. Let's go ahead and just dump the whole mess out here. Alright, so first impression, getting these out and holding one here. Obviously aluminum, so lighter weight. These do feel considerably lighter than the stock shock absorber that came off the Red Cat XTE, Blackout XTE, I should say. These again, I don't know what if these are going to be any more durable or not. I'm guessing they probably won't be. We're looking at, I'm looking at the material here. The stock shock being pretty thin in the plastic down here, and kind of looks the same here for the replacement shock. So I think that it was probably more so due to inclement weather, cold temperature, than actual inferior quality when it came to the failure of these shocks here. And again, 3 of them went bad on me. But the spring rate on here feels pretty good. It doesn't feel gritty, feels smooth as far as the shock shaft, and the actual slider here feels pretty good, guys. Now, what I want to do is get this cap off of here and see what we're dealing with inside of this shock. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the spring back a little bit, and we can notice here too that this is a threaded body shock absorber, which I like a lot. I don't like to have to deal with shock spacer clips if I don't have to, so that's kind of another thing that drew me to this particular purchase. So let's see if I can get this cap off. Okay, here comes the cap. So let's take a look and see what we have here. A lot of times you buy these shocks from China, and they're kind of put together haphazardly in order to meet their shocks built per day quota. They put them together quickly, and what can happen is these diaphragms on the inside here can get pinched inside between the threads on the actual shock body and the caps, and they can get torn, and then the shock is pretty much useless at that point until you can either have it replaced or get another diaphragm for it. Diaphragms feel pretty good, pretty rigid on that, so that's decent. As far as the amount of oil in here, guys, let's see if I can take a closer look here. All right, so I've got my trusty Streamlight pen light here, stylus pen light, to take a look inside here once. I don't know if you guys can see or not, but it looks like there is just a small amount of oil inside of this shock body here, and I can already see on the side here, guys. I don't know if this is picking up or not. If I try to get that light in such a position, if you look inside this shock body here, you might be able to see just on this top edge here little pieces of rubber or plastic from that diaphragm. I'm hoping that diaphragm's not damaged. It didn't appear to be inside the cap. It looked like it was okay, but I'm going to go ahead and clean that out of there before I add any more oil, and I will probably go in here and dump whatever oil is in here out, and swab out the inside nice, and then go ahead and add some oil. I think what we're going to use for oil today, guys, I'm going to start at a 40 weight, and I've got this Team Low C Racing, the TLR. This is 40 weight synthetic oil. I've had good luck using the Low C branded oils in whatever shocks that I'm adding oil to, so I'm going to use this as a starting point. If I need to put anything heavier in, I can do that at a later time, but I think the 40 weight's probably a good place to start. I've seen guys use 25 weight. It all depends on the shock absorber as well, but I want to get some sort of a slower rebound. I don't want this to be too springy, so I think 40 is a good place to start. So let's go ahead and get these emptied out, cleaned out, and we'll install some new oil and see where we're at that point. Before we get any farther with cleaning out the shock bodies, the shock bores, and adding new oil, I wanted to also mention that this does come with hardware, and it appears that this hardware is all Phillips headed screws, which is fine, I guess. That's not a big deal. All of the hardware on the car itself is 2mm hex, but this is fine. I mean, I'll end up using some of this, and I may end up being able to use some of the stock hardware from the car itself, but I wanted to point that out, that is included with this kit as well. So let's go ahead and get this oil out of this shock. I'll get these out of the way for just a second here, and show you guys what kind of oil is coming in here. Now I just got a wadded up piece of paper towel here to kind of absorb the oil, so I'm not dumping it on my work surface here and making a big huge mess. But let's go ahead and see what kind of oil that they're putting in here, and it's water thin. And kind of, I don't know if that looks like what type of oil that looks like to you guys, but it doesn't look like your standard shock oil. I think they just put that in there probably for shipping, to keep the seals and everything inside here lubricated, and not so they wouldn't dry out sitting in a shipping container somewhere in Singapore or wherever. But okay, so that's kind of like buying a vehicle made in China, a scooter or whatever. You want to get that shipping oil out and get good stuff in there. So now, in order to get this inside of this swabbed out, what I'll do is I'll take another piece of paper towel and kind of wad it up into a cylindrical shape, and put that down into the bore and then twist it around. That's just basically spindling a piece of a piece of paper towel up like so, and then stuffing it down in the bore. So like that, and then get it inside the bore here, and just kind of get it down in there and twist it around once it's in there to kind of sop up some of that oil that's in. Now normally if this would have been a shock that would have been used for any period of time, and I was changing oil out inside of it, I would have gone ahead and disassembled the whole shock absorber, you know, which includes taking off the obviously taking off this bottom saddle right here, and the spring and all that good stuff, and getting that all out of the way. But because this is new, I don't think there's any real call to have to do all of that, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this paper towel stuffed in here, and then go ahead and remove it. And you can see that we've soaked up some oil there. We'll take another quick look inside to make sure that we've not there is no other debris inside here, and that we haven't caused any damage by sticking that down in. And I think it looks okay. Yeah, it certainly looks fine. Now what we're going to want to do is fill this with oil. Now I hear guys say different things about the level in which to fill these things up. I usually fill it about 3/4 of the way up. So basically, let's roll this back down. So probably right about here on the threads. So 3/4 of the distance to the top here. You're going to want to actuate this shock all the way up slowly to kind of burp out some of the air bubbles anyway. So you don't want to overfill it, because you could run the risk of, you know, squishing oil out all over the place and making a huge mess. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and pull this spring forward on the bottom here, and I'm going to go ahead and pull the saddle off of here, so we are not don't have that in the way, and I can get the spring out of the way as well, and make sure that I can actuate this shock shaft as well here. So with that out of the way, we can go ahead and pull the shock shaft all the way down and get our oil going here. Now filling this oil up, you just take a little bit at a time and check your levels. You don't want to go too high on it, and these are pretty easy to fill. You guys can see there's a little bit of a spout on here, and we'll squeeze out a little bit there, and I'll take another look inside and see where we're at. Yeah, we got a ways to go yet there. But you want to do this pretty slowly, because it does tend to come out fast if you grab a big handful of this bottle and squeeze it hard. So now it looks like I may have a little bit too much in there, and I do. I've got a little bit more than I'd like in there. Too much talking, not enough watching what I'm doing here. So go ahead and put that up a little bit higher. I'm going to pour just a little bit of this out, get it out of the way, and open it back up again. I'm going to actuate this a couple of times to see if I can bring any air bubbles to the top here. You want to try to get as much of the air out of this as you can, so the shock is operating properly. And then there is kind of a fine line with the distance. Now you can see inside here that we're about 3/4. I hope you can see that. I don't know if you can or not, but we are about 3/4, maybe a little bit higher than 3/4 of the way up to the top with oil. I'm going to wipe off the threads here, and we can go ahead and install our cap again. But I want to make sure that I have all the air out, so I'm going to go ahead and push the shock shaft in again, and make sure that all of our oil is out, or all of our air is out, and it appears to be. So let's go ahead and pull this all the way back down again. We will get our cap. I don't see any debris inside the cap here, so we can go ahead and screw this back on and tighten it down. Now we're going to tighten this down as hard as we can by hand. And what I usually do is I'll take a small hex wrench and then a piece of cloth or paper towel around it to protect the anodized aluminum, and I will twist it on just a very little bit more to make sure this is on there completely right. Now when you have your oil inside here, one way to check to see if you have enough oil is to actuate the shaft all the way in, and you should see it come back out again like so. Okay, so it looks like we definitely have enough oil in there, and that may be even a little bit much. Might be able to take just a little bit of oil out of here, and I think I'm going to go ahead and take some out, just a splash back out of here, because that that shock shaft is actually moving a little bit more than I want it to on its own. So we'll go ahead and pour just a little bit more out of here, and not much at all, guys, just a real little bit. And like I said before, there is going to be a way to feel, and you'll get a feel for this the more you do it, the way when you'll know when you know you have enough oil or not enough oil. So again, we're going to pull the shaft all the way down, and because I had it tilted, I'm going to go ahead and move the shaft up again and make sure that there is any bubbles come to the top. And we'll go ahead and put that down and put the cap back on again, same way as before. We're going to tighten it down as hard as we can, give it as much as we can by hand here, twist that on there, and we're going to actuate the shock shaft and let go, and that feels better. So that definitely feels better. It doesn't feel so forceful coming back into extension there like that. You want to see a little bit like that, and I think that's fine. So there we go. All right, now we can go ahead and reinstall our spring on here. Actually, what I'm going to do before I do that is get a wrench and just snug this down, and I'll do that off camera, guys, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, with the caps all nice and tight and everything snugged down on here, we can go ahead and reassemble our shock absorber. Now, reassembling these, you want to make sure that you have your smaller coils. You'll notice on the spring that you have two different widths in the coils, so you have a little bit of space between the coils here and more down here. This is called a progressive spring rate, so you want to make sure that you are actually having the tighter coils towards the top or the cap of the shock, and the bottom having the more open coils on it to kind of work the best. So we'll go ahead and we'll pop this into place, and you want to make sure that you're pushing this all the way up on the top here. You'll see that little lip underneath the adjuster screw here, adjuster knob. You go ahead and pop that into place. You can hear almost an audible pop when that gets put back in its rightful place. And then we're going to go ahead and put our and then we're going to go ahead and put our bottom cup in place. You want to make sure that you are putting it with the flanged end up, and that just fits over the shock shaft itself here through the slot. And then that will slide over the plastic holder there, and you are all set. And that's pretty much it for this one here, guys. Feels pretty good, I think. And that one is done. Now I'm gonna go ahead and repeat the process with the other three, and I'll be back in a second. All right, guys, that pretty much does it for getting these shocks filled and ready to be installed. I may end up changing out the weight of the oil. I don't know. No, I'm not even sure that these shocks are going to be proper for this car. It's all going to depend on the weight of the vehicle. These springs are, again, we're dealing with quite a bit of a difference in the shock circumference. So these are, the stock springs are big bore. So these are a little bit different in the overall length, and they're quite a bit smaller. So the bores are a lot smaller on these than they are on this. I don't know how these are going to how this is all going to play out. I'm going to have to install these and see exactly how they act and react to the weight of the vehicle and the way I drive it. These may not work, I don't know, but I wanted to get these and show you guys what can be had for under $20 on Amazon. And again, the link will be in the description. As far as using shock oils, I don't endorse Team Losi oils. This is just what I've been using for the short amount of time that I've been into ground RC, and it seems to be working out pretty good for me. So this is something else I may end up changing out. I may go to a heavier viscosity oil in order to get that rebound right. So it seems a little bit springy right now, but we're going to see once I get these installed on the car. I'll post a link for the shock oil and also for the shocks in the description below, guys. Any questions on shock oil, that type of thing, please put it down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer any questions you guys might have. Thank you all for stopping by. Thanks to all my new subscribers. We'll see you all in the next one. God bless the Republic.